Many generations ago, when the rivers were to man the way the highways are to us now, the village was inundated with business, bustling canoes going up and down from the mouth of the river. But one day, traffic slowed. Travelers were being waylaid, merchants weren't getting through. And so the village sent a party downstream to see what was happening. And days later, after not returning, they decided to send a messenger of peace. There were members of the community who bayed for the blood. How could we take these injustices? They've attacked our people, waylaid our traveler, taken our merchants. But cooler heads prevailed. They sent a member of the community, a dignitary, with the gift of wampum. For no enemy, no matter how feral, how bestial, would attack a bearer of peace. And they too failed to come back. And even at this moment, the cooler heads bayed for blood. So they assembled a war party, and this war party cut down many trees and made the war canoes. But these were not your typical canoe. You see, war canoes were made from the tallest trees, as wide as your arms, as tall as the biggest buildings. So thick that no rock could crack them, so heavy that no amount of arrows could sink them. And so the men piled into these canoes, 20 at a time, and they went down the river. They traveled for some time before coming to the mouth of the river, right before the rapids. And they see two figures, tall and dark, like pine trees, leaned over the river, their faces long and extended like a hunter holding a spear. And they positioned themselves at the edge of the lake so that everything that comes through the river would be washed towards them. And at the sight of these creatures, the men drop their paddles. They get trapped in the rapids. And even in the best of times, the rapids are a hard and dangerous thing to move against. And in the confusion, some men loose arrows. Some men jump over the boat. Some men keep paddling. But the currents are too strong and they're pushed more and more towards the monsters. The monsters, like great fishermen, pick at the men. They pull them out of the boat. They stick them through the chest. They throw them overboard. As the first canoe exits the mouth of the river, it hits the rocks and it flips over. And a young man is trapped beneath the canoe. He gets washed out towards the river as more of his comrades get plucked out of the boats that come behind him. After regaining his composure and swimming to the bank of the river, he spies his fellow warriors just past the trees in an open plain, harrying the monsters, going from the trees, shooting arrows, retreating back, singing their songs, throwing their hatchets. But he has lost his war gear. He no longer has his axe. His arrow sits on the bank. His arrows have sunk to the bottom of the river. His bow sits on the bank. There's nothing he can do but watch from the trees. So he crouches down and stays hidden, observing as much as he can. The warriors out in the field, they loose arrows, run back into the trees, and as they do, the monsters chase them. But the monsters overstep, and one of them takes an arrow to the chest. It screams in pain, it rears its giant wings, and it flies off. The men, overcome, overconfident, charge the second monster and are all cut down. The second monster takes flight as well, goes to join its mate. The young man, by himself in the trees, cries, regains his composure, and limps back to the camp. He tells his fellow villagers what has happened. They assemble another party. They carve more canoes. The young man is placed in charge of these men, and he brings with him a large length of rope, as thick as your arm. And he has the idea. He tells the men to drop him off halfway down the river. He'll make the rest of the journey on foot. He gets there before the rest of the men, and he sneaks up behind the monsters. He ducks low, he climbs through the underbrush, he cuts his arms on the jagged rocks. There's sand in his mouth. He ties the rope around the leg of the first monster. He makes his way back to the tree line, ties it around the thickest tree he can find, as wide as this stove here. He sees the other monster on the other bank. He knows that he must run in order to reach it, but the first monster will catch him. He knows that he is doomed. And as he dives for the second monster, the first monster slays him and drops him into the river. The rest of the party makes their way not long after. They sing their songs, they fire their arrows, they pile out of the canoes, they waylay the monsters. Again, they harry them back and forth in the plains, into the trees, firing their arrows, chanting their songs, swinging their axes. And another arrow strikes true. The monsters rear up, they furl their wings, they go to fly off, but the rope catches the first one. He comes crashing back down. And the warriors waylay them with their hatchets, chopping the first monster to bits. The second monster, seeing what has been done to its mate, goes into a frenzy. The men harry this one, chasing it through the trees, firing their arrows. Again, the arrows strike true. This monster is wounded in the heart. It goes to flee. It crashes back down as well, right next to its mate. It meets the same fate. It is waylaid by the warriors with their hatchets. And as dusk approaches, the men build a campfire, a great bonfire with the trees they use from the canoes. And they start to pile the remains of the monsters onto the fire. And as they do this, they boast and they gloat to each other about who landed what arrows, who felled the monster first, whose hatchet struck deepest. And the monsters, their spirits see this, and they become disgusted in the behavior of the warriors, for they know that it was not their hatchets, it wasn't their arrows, but it was the young man whose rope had brought them low. So they take the last of their great malicious power and they pour it into the dust of their remains. And as the ashes rise out of the fire, they start to change. They become alive like the monsters. They grow wings. Their face extends forward. And they charge the warriors without a care for their own well-being, seeking to inflict any sort of small, petty damage they can. And it was this day that the mosquito came to plague our people. And now